You are currently the only person in this conference.
Very good afternoon to everyone. Sorry for the delay. There were some technical errors, so that's why I couldn't get on time. Anyway, so let's start the analysis for 23rd of September. Fine. So I'll be doing the Hindu analysis of 23rd of September. Okay. So first I'll do the analysis which are important from your prelim analysis based, so that we could cover the small articles early and then we could do the deeper analysis with the editorial sections. Okay. So the first thing that's coming on your screen, let me share it. Okay, so the first thing that is here is your quad ministers hold talks on rules-based order UN reform. So what is happening now? If you see, what are they going to discuss? So they discuss helping countries to respond to the terror attacks. The joint readout reaffirms the commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific where disputes are settled in accordance with the international laws. Now, for that, you need to know what is happening. Now, there was a meeting that was held early on Friday. So, this was the 78th session of UN General Assembly, that is United Nations General Assembly. So, what's happening in the meeting? Here, the foreign ministers of the Quad. So, now you need to know who all are there in Quad. So, Quad, that is India, Australia, Japan, and US, reaffirm the group's commitment to a free and open Indo Pacific region where disputes are settled in accordance with international law. Now, you see, the Quad countries, where are the locations of the Quad countries? So, first, the country of Quad is your India, then is Australia, then is Japan and US. Now, if you see the entire location of the countries, just a minute. Okay, so if I go with the locations, what you will see, India, Australia, Japan, and US. So you have India here, you have Australia somewhere here, you have Japan here, and you have USA. So what is happening? If you see, this is a quad that is being formed. So this quad is comprising of the regions. Which regions? The regions that is specifying the Indo-Pacific region. So the foreign ministers of the respective countries of the Quad countries are worried about the Indo-Pacific region. So what is the reason of concern? Now they say that in this Indo-Pacific region, there should be free and open dispute resolutions which shall be based on international laws. Right? So what's happening? The Quad also committed itself to the principles of UN Charter and reforms of the institutions. A new initiative to help countries respond to terror attacks was also discussed. Now, External Affairs Minister has discussed the outcome of Quad Counter-Terrorism Working Group Consequences Management Exercise, which studied how Quad could help regional countries that had experienced terror attacks. So if you see, they are very heavily or very highly focused on the terror attack regions. Now, what's happening here? The minister stressed their commitments to countering terrorism. And how is this possible? When we conduct a tabletop exercise, they stress their commitment to countering terrorism, including terror financing and cross-border movement of terrorists and curbing the use of emerging technology for terror purposes. That means the whole aim here is for countering the terrorism. On Ukraine, the Quad read out struck a similar note to the recent G20 joint statement in New Delhi. So that means they have eventually talked about it in the recent G20 summit as well. So the Quad also backed the UN efforts to restart the Black Sea Grain Initiative. The Quad also backed the UN efforts to restart the Black Sea Grain Initiative, a deal that secures the export of grain from Ukraine and Russia. So now, if you see, Black Sea has always been a very favorite topic of UPSC. So here also they have talked about the Black Sea Grain Initiative. Now this becomes important. Black Sea Grain Initiative. The agreement had expired in July, with countries calling for its resumption, including at the G20 in Delhi. The joint statement also called for comprehensive UN reform, including expanding the permanent and non-permanent representation on UNSC. Well, this has always been there, that where like the membership of UNSC should be expanded. Why? Because there is improper representation. Why? Because see, African countries are also there, we Asian countries or the Asian countries are also there, so there is a very least representation of these countries in UNSC. So this has always been there. So for IR purpose, you should know why UNSC reforms, or why UNSC reform is required. I have talked about it in one of the current affair classes, and also there are certain shots that are available in Yojna, so you could go and search over there. So we underscore the need to address the attempts to subvert the international system, including the UN, and promote accountability. The statement said, presumably referring to the Russia's use of veto on Security Council in actions related to the conflict in Ukraine. That means Russia has been misleading or misusing its veto power. Okay. Apart from this, when they have been focusing about the terror attacks, they have also talked about what the destabilizing missile launches and pursuits of nuclear weapons from the side of the North Korea. On Myanmar, the Quad supported a transition to an inclusive federal democracy and the Asian five-point consensus. Now, what is that Asian five-point consensus? On April 2021, agreement between the Myanmar junta and the Asian group of countries. So there was an agreement that was made between the Myanmar and the Asian group of countries. So the group reiterated its commitment to practical initiative in the Indo-Pacific region, including the Quad Infrastructure Fellowship Program. So you should also know about the Quad Infrastructure Fellowship Program. So this, what is this? This Quad infrastructure fellowship program. So this is a pandemic preparedness exercise and the development of a trusted and secure telecommunication network. That means if in future there is any kind of pandemic or any kind of disaster that is going to happen, so this will be a communication network among the countries which will be very trusted and secure. Okay, so this was about the Quad ministers that held talks on rule-based order, that is in the Indo-Pacific region, and also the need for UN reforms. UN reforms need has always been talked about, so you must know about it. Okay, so this was about Quad. Now let's go on to the next news. Well, you should know about these Quad countries, that is India, Australia, Japan, US. Now let's go on to the next news analysis. Now this says that the panel calls for revising rules of construction around protected ASI monuments. And what is ASI? ASI is your Archaeological Survey of India. So a parliamentary panel has observed that the provision of a 100-meter prohibited area and 300-meter regulated area around all monuments protected by the Archaeological Survey of India. So they are talking about the 100-meter prohibited area. That means any kind of activities are prohibited in this area. Then 300-meter, there will be activities that would be regulated. So regulated activities is a regulated area. And this is coming under what? Your Archaeological Survey of India. Protected by the Archaeological Survey of India has pitted the local community against these heritage structures in many places as they find it difficult to carry out necessary repair work of their residential spaces. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, Tourism and Culture has asked the government to revise the rules to make them realistic. So what has been the concern over here? Now they're saying that the rules that have been made, they should be revised. Why? Because they are talking about making rules which are realistic, and they don't found these rules to be realistic. So it has also recommended rationalizing the application of such rules based on the historical significance of the monuments. So in some cases, the entire village is within a radius of 300 meters. So the concern is that if you are talking about what 300-meter regulated area, so there are some villages which are or who are lying within this 300-meter radius. So what will happen in that case? Now, which makes it difficult for the entire village to carry out repair work of the residential houses. Now, this is exactly what they are talking about, because when you see the Archaeological Survey of India, under this, they have talked about specifically that the 100-meter area under, just inside 100-meter area, the activities are prohibited, and inside 300 meters, those activities are regulated. So all those villages that are lying within that 300-meter radius, so they can't even go for their own repairing work of their own residential houses. That will become difficult for them. So this seeing the analysis, by this purpose, the this regulation seems to be very unrealistic. So this is why they are talking about that they should be revised and it should be made realistic. Such a situation in many places create a hostile scenario, pitching the local community against the monuments. It is said in a report that was submitted on Rajya Sabha. So the prohibited and the restricted area provision was introduced back in 2010 through an amendment to the Ancient Monument and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958. Now, they have mentioned about the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1958. So, what is this act talking about? So, this becomes important for you. The Ancient Monument and Archaeological Science Act. What does this act talks about? The act prohibits and regulates all activities like minimizing and construction around 100 meters and 300 meters. The central government has already said that it was in the process of amending the act. So if you see these numbers, that is your 100-meter and 300-meter, is coming from which act? This is your Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act, because they could ask you about the act referring to how much the distance where the construction activity should be prohibited. Now, the committee went on to say that at present, the same set of rules apply to both significant and insignificant monuments. So, they have also devised what, which are the monuments that are significant and insignificant. That means we have monuments which are significant. At the same time, there are certain monuments which are referred. For example, the rules above apply identically. 1 minute. Okay. The rules above apply identically to the iconic Ajanta and the Ellora monuments and the Cosminars, unknown cemeteries and tombs, etc. Now, what they want to say is, see, you just a second. Now, what they want to say is that if you see, while you will be doing your art and culture section, you will find that Ellora and Ajanta caves are very important. Now, when these monuments are historically very important, so the rules that are guiding these monuments are the similar rules that are guiding these insignificant monuments, you could say the unknown cemeteries and tombs. So they are also coming under the same relevance that Ellora and Ajanta is holding. So that what is doubtful, and that's what is making this doubting the realistic aspect of the act also. Now it also recommended that the list of all 3691 ASI protected monuments be rationalized and categorized based on their national significance, unique architecture value, and specific heritage content. So, if you see, there is no undoubtedly a revised structure is needed, because even the natives of the places who are staying 300 meters within the radius of those insignificant monuments are facing difficulties. And at the same time, if those monuments are considered as insignificant, it doesn't hold any relevance, making those people go all through the issues regarding their own construction of their own residential houses. Okay. So if you see, these two analyses are important with respect to your prelims. Now let me get on to the important sections. Okay, so the very first page of the newspaper. Okay, now here you see, this is a very big news coming on our way, that our sports minister will skip the Asian inaugural as China bars entry of Arunachal players. Now, what is the issue behind, and what is the reason that our people are 1 minute? Our sports minister is skipping the Asian inaugural as why China barred the entry of Arunachal players. So, our sports minister has cancelled the visit of Asian Games due to China's denial of entry to Indian wushu players from Arunachal Pradesh, even as the government registered an official protest. So, what is the issue behind? So these three wushu players were refused entry despite having the accreditations from the organizers. So all those players who are going for the Asian Games, they are provided with the accreditation cards. Now, despite of having these accreditations from the organizers, these players were refused entry. Uh, And how was the entry refused? So one was refused to board the flight from Delhi. The other two were told that they could not travel till Hong Kong. So with no further development and their event scheduled for Sunday, it seems likely that they'll not unlikely that they'll be able to participate. So what is happening is that the government officials in New Delhi said they were surprised by China's treatment to the three sports person from Arunachal Pradesh who had valid accreditation. That means there is a differential treatment that is being given to these players. So what is the scenario behind? Now, the players were stopped from boarding their flights from Delhi late, and that the decisions were taken to cancel the ministerial visit and to lodge the protest with the Beijings. Now, the ground staff of the airlines, what have they said? That they believe that the all three had received their accreditation cards in what was possibly an oversight by the Chinese sporting officials, and therefore instructions were given by the Chinese authority to stop them from boarding at the last minute. So, according to the protocol for the Asian Games, all sports persons were given accreditation cards which served as visa for entry into China. So if you see, they are not provided with the visa as per the statement what they are saying. Instead of visa, they are provided the accreditation card. So an official told that it could not have been a coincidence that the three sports person were targeted and all were from the Arunachal Pradesh area. So if you have a little bit idea that China is having what a dispute with India regarding the recognition of the regions of Arunachal Pradesh. Mm. 1 minute. Okay, so the government of India has learned that the Chinese authority have in targeted and premeditated manner discriminated against some of the Indian sports person from the Arunachal Pradesh. That means they have discriminated with the sports people or the sports person coming from the regions of Arunachal Pradesh because China considers Arunachal Pradesh as its own territory and it does not recognize Arunachal Pradesh as a part of some part of the Indian territory. So, in line with our long-standing and considered position, India firmly rejects this differential treatment of Indian citizens on the basis of domicile and ethnicity. This is exactly what happened because this treatment was only, or this differential treatment was only provided to the players that were coming from the Arunachal Pradesh region. Fine. Now, let's move on to the 10th page number because half of that news is there. A strong protest has been lodged in New Delhi and Beijing against the China's deliberate and selective obstruction to some of our sports persons. First, as a mark of our protest against the Chinese action, Minister of Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs Sports of India has cancelled his schedule. Now, ironically, the decision came on the day that the Indian flag was hoisted and the Indian contingent was officially welcomed into the athletes' village. Now, what's happening? Earlier in the day, Olympic Council of Asia and the Games Organizing Committee made statements on the Asian Games being an inclusive event for all sports lover of Asia, but refused to comment on the contentious issue of the athletes from Arunachal Pradesh. So the issue was brought to our notice yesterday. Now, what is India's stand on this? So what India has said that government is trying to have interaction with it. It is under discussion with the Olympic Council of India. And why Olympic Council of India? Because Asian Games are another very important games other than Olympic Games. So Olympic Council of Asia. So the matter will be heard in the Olympic Council of India. So what is the chairman over there saying? They claim that the China had issued the visa, but the Indians had not accepted it. Reacting to this, India's decision to cancel the ministerial visit, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs had doubled down, saying that its government has never recognized the so-called Arunachal region. So this is a big statement. Again, this is what exactly I told you right from the starting of the news analysis, that they are not recognizing Arunachal region as the region of India. So this is what they have said, that the Chinese government has said that they never recognize the so-called Arunachal area. Okay. So this was about the Asian visit, the visit of our sports minister, who will skip the Asia inaugural. And since it has talked about Olympic Council, so what you need to know is that Asian Games again hold relevance after Olympics. So Olympics is one big game that is being held, and after Olympics, it's Asian Games. Okay, let's move on to the editorial section. Okay, so we are having two editorials. One is India and the Great Power Contest in West Asia. And then there is a clear message to industry on dispute resolution. So both are important. Let's go on to this one and talk about India and the Great Power Contest in West Asia. Now, before I start, you should know about which are the West Asian countries. And these West Asian countries hold a lot of relevance with respect to your geography questions with respect to the prelim section. Now, at the G20 summit in New Delhi earlier this month, United States presidents and others have unveiled a US-backed infrastructure projects to connect India, West Asia, and Europe with shipping lanes, rail networks, pipelines, and data cables. So why is this happening now? A week earlier, a high-level U.S. delegation had visited Saudi Arabia, chasing a normalization agreement between the Sunni kingdoms and the Jewish state of Israel. That means Saudi Arabia and Israel were in the targets of U.S. So the two of America's allies in this region, in which region? In the West Asia region. So West Asia region, there are two allies of America. And who are those? One is your Saudi Arabia, we all know about it, and Israel. These seemingly unrelated but geopolitically contiguous development offer a broad framework to the US president's approach towards West Asia, a geostrategically important region where US had a dominating presence for decades, but which is now being challenged by multiple factors. So what is the policy now US is going to take on? So one of the continuation of the Trump era policy of bringing America's two pillars in the region, the Gulf Arabs and the Israel, closer to meet their common geopolitical challenges. So this is exactly what they have said in the introduction, that it's US is having two allies. One is your Saudi and one is your Israel, and they are trying to make these two pillars come closer. Why? To meet the geopolitical challenges. And what are the geopolitical challenge? The geopolitical challenge is to counter Iran's rise in the region. So the Abraham Accord reached under the Trump era set the stage for transformation of Israel ties with the UAE. But the true potential of this policy could not be reached unless there is a deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia, arguably the most influential Arab countries today. And what has the present day president talked about it? So the present day president has said that they have came a long way as a president, and the administration believes that a Saudi-Israel deal would transform the Arab-Israel ties, strengthening the US position in the region without further military commitment. So if the ties between them hold on, that means the Arab-Israel and Saudi Arabia and the Israel, so that would increase the influence of the this presence in the region, and that would help in countering who? The Iran. The second part of this policy would be that in 2012, the leaders of India, Israel, US, and UAE had a virtual summit, what is now called as I2U2 mini lateral. Now, this is important. Why? Because you are having India, you are having Israel, then you are having US, and then you are having UAE. So, this is what they are saying as I2U2 mini lateral. Fine. The idea behind this is to create a new platform that could expedite economic integration between the West Asia and South Asia and offer economic and technological solutions to the problem faced by the global South. That means bringing together the West Asia region and the South Asia region to offer technological solutions. Now, India's presence in the grouping of the Abraham Accord countries was seen as a legitimate recognition of India's presence in the region. Now, the India Middle East Europe corridor. Now, in the recent G20 summit that happened, they have discussed about India, Middle East, and Europe corridor. Now, the G20 summit enhances the India stand. Now, what or how will this corridor? That means you are taking in reference the Middle East region. You are taking in reference the Europe region. They are talking about the Middle East Europe corridor. So, how will this corridor be beneficial to the US? So, it seeks to build an economic corridor from India's western coast through the Gulf, that is the UAE and the Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Israel to the Mediterranean, bringing India and Europe closer. If this project takes off, US hopes that it could retain its channel of influence in the West Asia, control the major shipping lanes, and reassure its allies of its staying capacity. Now, if you see, the entire foreign policy of US is shifting. And why is it shifting? Because why is it, US is continuously trying to bring India onto the picture? Because of one of the very important reason, because we have China over here, and China you need to counter, because China is posing threat and can like anytime pose threat to US as well as India. So US may not want to exit West Asia. So US is very importantly focusing on this area now, but it has reprioritized the region in terms of its security commitments. Why? As its focus has shifted back to the Eastern Europe and East Asia. Now, why they have started focusing on the regions of Eastern Europe and East Asia? All through the now, what we have been talking about, that US has been focusing on the West Asia region, and now they say that there is a shift in the policy of the US. Why? Because they are getting focused into the regions of East Asia. And this is what exactly I told you, that here you are having China. And at the same time, you are having Russia. So in order to counter Russia and China, you need to focus, US need to focus on to the East Asia region. So US deprioritizing of the region does not diminish the strategic value. That means for now, the prioritization has shifted towards the East Asia region, but that doesn't mean that US has, just forgotten about the Western region, but it is focusing on the Eastern region. Now, as the US is pivoting to East Asia, China, which is dependent on imports for over 70% of its oil requirement, is enhancing its focus on the West Asia. China has not only emerged as the biggest trading partner of America's Gulf Arab allies, and but a major investor in the region. So, if you see here, if US is devising strategies, China has also made allies with the Gulf Arab world. Now, this will pose a dilemma to the US. Deprioritizing of the region is a strategic reality. So it cannot just exit West Asia. Why? Because China would try to fulfill the vacuum. So if US is going to deprioritize the West Asia region, that is the region of Saudi Arabia and your Israel section, what is going to happen? China will come into the picture. So this is what the author is trying to say, that even though US is making a good stand by focusing on East Asia region, but somehow or other, US should not forget that if they are deprioritizing the regions of West Asia, somewhere or other, China will take the advantage of that. But for now, what we have to see is that US retain or extend its influence into the region when China is trying to do the same thing. So primarily, the potential of Saudi-Israeli deal is important. This is what the author has said in the introduction section also, that US is allies with Saudi Arabia and US is allied with Israel also. But it has to bring both the countries together in order to bring what? In order to bring these, or in order to exert the influence in the regions of West Asia. Fine. But even if a deal is materialized in the near future, there are other challenges also. Now, what are those? The US deprioritization of the region has loosened its grip on its allies and left a security vacuum, which was collectively prompted regional powers to autonomize their foreign policies. Now, what else is going to happen over here? This was evident in the Saudi-UAE detente with Iran. So the decision to end the Saudi-led blockade of Qatar and the Arab reconciliation with Syria's Bashar al-Assad. Saudi Arabia and UAE also trying to formulate policies independent of US goals and strengthening ties with the rising power. That means now they are also looking for what? Opportunities of where rising powers are there. So their decision to join BRICS may who all are there? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa is a case in point. So they might welcome America's diplomatic push or economic integration plan, but they might not remain client states like they were during the Cold War and the unipolar world. Now, Britain's administration, despite its limited engagement, continues to see Iran as a hostile power. Now, this is exactly why US was trying to bring Saudi and Israel together. So, also the rivalry between Iran and Israel would remain the central geopolitical contradiction of West Asia by reaching a detente with Iran. Now, what are the avenues for India over here? For India, the US-China competition in West Asia opens new avenues of engagement. The US sees India with its size, the size of its economy, and the legacy of its historical engagement and cultural connect with the region as an important partner in its bid to continue shape West Asia's geopolitics. Why? This is why India is holding much relevance. India should welcome the moment but should not look it through the prism of another Cold War. Or it should not put all its egg in one basket as it did in the Afghanistan part. It is already part of a near functional international north-south transport corridor. So the author is saying that we are already a part of north-south transport corridor. So we should do what? We should make a clear diplomatic stand, which is connecting India to Russia through Iran and Central Asia. The Middle East corridor would open another economic channel. India's overall policy towards the region should stay anchored in this idea of multi engagement, that is, not appeasing or containing any great power, with or without the US or irrespective of China's presence in the region. India should strive to play a major geopolitical role in West Asia, its extended neighborhood, without upsetting its traditional balance. That means we are having our roots in form of north-south transport corridor fix. So what we need to do is we need to have our influence in the region very strong, but at the same time we should not forget our traditional ties as well. That means the traditional plans that we were holding, we should not forget about it because of the new plans that are coming onto our approaches. Okay, so thank you so much.